So we're ready to begin. Welcome everyone. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Julie Wong and I am the Education and Regional Support Lead at the Alzheimer's Society of Toronto. I would love to welcome you to our Advances in Dementia Research webinar series, which are presented by the Toronto Dementia Research Alliance in partnership with the Alzheimer's Society of Toronto. This series discusses recent updates in dementia research and highlights dementia research studies that are occurring all across Toronto. For those of you who may not be as familiar with the Alzheimer's Society of Toronto, I did want to spend a little bit of time to introduce the Alzheimer's Society of Toronto. So we provide information, education, support to people who are living with dementia, as well as their family and friends, healthcare professionals, and the general public within the M postal code. Some things I did want to share is we service all dementias and a diagnosis or referral is not required to access our programs and services. We also do provide social recreational programs for people living with dementia as well as their family caregivers. Our services are offered in person as well as virtually through Zoom and the ALS Educate e-learning platform. I also wanted to let you know that we provide services throughout the whole journey. So from pre-diagnosis all the way to bereavement supports, we will provide support all the way through. So if you did want to learn more about what we have to offer, please do visit our website at www.alz.to to take a look at our calendar of events, upcoming offerings. I'd like to also introduce to you our partner, the Toronto Dementia Research Alliance, or TDRA. Established in 2012, the TDRA is a collaboration among the University of Toronto, Baycrest, the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health, Ontario Shores Centre for Mental Health Sciences, Sunnybrook, Unity Health Toronto, and the University Health Network. Together with its partners, TDRA aims to strengthen the link between basic science and clinical research to better understand, prevent, and treat dementia. So I would like to introduce my partner today, Ruth, to speak with you a little bit more about the TDRA.
Thank you, Julie, and welcome everybody from the TDRA and AST, of course. So AST and the TDRA partnered on an initiative to make research more accessible to everybody. The Toronto Dementia Network, or TDN, is a website that lists dementia-related programs and services across Toronto. On this website, we created a section called Research Studies, which lists dementia studies that are open to participation across the city. Each study is led by a TDRA-affiliated scientist and has been approved by Research Ethics Board. There's studies for people living with Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementias, mild cognitive impairment, those at risk of developing dementia, and healthy volunteers and caregivers or care partners. The studies are all summarized in plain language. To get started, the website link is shown here in orange. Information about the TDN can also be found on our AST website and on our TDRA website, as well as the AST website. If I could have the next slide, please, Julie. Great, thank you. On the website, there's two main pathways, as you can see outlined on this slide. First, you can browse for a study using search terms, filters, and quick searches. When you find a study you're interested in, you can fill out the contact form to be connected with a research team who will enroll you in the study if you're eligible. Or at the bottom here, if you're not sure where to start, you can fill out a questionnaire to be matched to a study. Any information you enter will be securely stored and protected. Next slide, please, Julie. And this is what the website looks like, folks. When you're on the page, if you're looking for something specific, for example, Alzheimer's disease studies, you can type it into the search bar along the top there. You can hit the submit with that term or apply more filters like the type of study, age group, target population, or the study location, and then you hit submit. Alternatively, you can use this quick search button we have in the blue boxes. If you'd rather fill out a questionnaire to be matched to a study, then you click Match Me to a Study, the quick search box, or scroll to the bottom of the page and you'll see this orange button that says Can't Find a Study You're Interested in, which will also help take you to the questionnaire. So each study summary, as shown for the example we have shown in this slide for the front sim study card, describes what the study is about, who can participate, the location, and the time requirement, all in plain language. The front STEM study we're discussing today is listed on the TDN, so you'll be able to read more about it and connect to the study team there. And now is my time to introduce the speaker. Before I do, though, just a reminder to keep all questions, if you can, till the end of the webinar for our question and answer period, where we'll be happy to answer them. But feel free to type them into the chat throughout, and we'll keep track and make sure to try to address them at the end of this webinar. So we're grateful today to be joined by Dr. Andres Lozano, who's a professor and chairman of the Division of Neurosurgery at the University of Toronto. He holds a Tasker Chair in Functional Neurosurgery at Toronto Western Hospital, and he's a Tier 1 Canada Research Chair in Neuroscience. Dr. Lozano is also a senior scientist of the Krembil Research Institute, which is part of the University Health Network. His research focuses on functional neurosurgery and the development of new therapies for psychiatric disease and movement disorders. So welcome, Dr. Lozano, and we look forward to hearing your talk.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today and to address this group. And I will share my screen if I can here and put this in presentation mode. So as you've heard, I am a neurosurgeon, and I am interested in improving the function of the human brain. And we do this using surgical techniques. And what I'd like to tell you about today is a study that we have just launched on using brain stimulation electricity to stimulate the brain in a very powerful way to try to improve brain function and try to turn on areas of the brain that are shut down in patients with dementia. So this work is done by a team at Toronto Western Hospital, and I'll tell you about that today. So our field is called functional neurosurgery, and we have been doing this for about 30 years here, this type of surgery. And we treat patients from Canada, from Ontario, from all over the world. We have international visitors and scientists. We've had about 75 doctors that have come here and spent at least a year with us to learn these techniques. And we've published about 800 papers on this in this area and 10 books. And really, we rank #1 in the world for this area of using deep brain stimulation, which is the technique we are going to be speaking about today. So we've used this technique to treat a number of disorders in an investigational way. It's now well established for Parkinson's disease. So this is done routinely now. We've done about 1,000 of these operations to treat patients with Parkinson's disease. And the next one that we tackled was depression, and that is ongoing. And we've recently also started to consider using brain stimulation to treat Alzheimer's. So these are at various levels in their development, with Parkinson's being well established and the other one still being under investigation. What deep brain stimulation is a procedure where we place a small electrode, roughly the size of a strand of spaghetti, into the brain. And then this electrode is then tunneled underneath the skin, so completely underneath the skin, behind the ear, with a cable to a battery that is underneath the skin in the chest, under the collarbone. And this battery usually lasts for about 4 years, and it delivers continuous electrical stimulation to the brain to activate the area of the brain that we're stimulating. And we're able to adjust how much electricity to deliver, very much like you use your remote control on your television to adjust the channel or to increase or decrease the volume. So through the skin, we're able to point our remote to this pacemaker, and we're able to then calculate just exactly how much electricity is being delivered to the brain to treat our patients. So this is what the procedure is like. And let me show you what this is like in real life. And as I told you, we've been doing this mostly in the context of Parkinson's disease. So let me show you one of my very early patients from 25 years ago that had this procedure done for Parkinson's disease. So I'll play you a video of that.
Small holes about the size of a dime.
An electrical current runs through the electrodes and blocks the activity in the cells. It sort of paralyzes them, which in turn stops the tremors.
The electrodes are inserted into the brain, and then they are tunneled underneath the skin. And they go from the scalp over here, and they go back behind the ear, and they run down underneath the skin of the neck, all the way down the chest, and they end up hooked up to a pulse generating device, a pacemaker.
Margaret has two stimulators because her Parkinson's affects both sides of her brain. You can't do this with a pallidotomy. Burning cells on both sides is just too risky.
So she has these electrodes in place.
It takes a lot of fine-tuning to find the right amount of current needed to eliminate the tremors. Margaret will make many visits before her body is completely calm.
So we're going to turn them off
They're just
now.
turned off.
And you'll see that her tremors starting.
And you only need to see the electrodes turned off to see what a dramatic difference they make.
We've been very pleased, and we are still early on in the course.
So
They're
now
turned off.
both are off, and you can see
These
the
patients
tremor.
still have Parkinson's disease. They are not cured. They still require medications. And you can see that the tremor is coming back. Are you able to touch my finger?
Hello? I can't.
Can you touch?
Hi, Paul. Actually, I'm gonna, okay, I'll be here in a second, just in the middle of a meeting, but hold on.
Okay, so you can see how this works. This works instantly. As soon as we turn on the stimulator, her tremor disappears completely. And as soon as we turn off the stimulator, the tremor reappears. So this is something that has really revolutionized the treatment of Parkinson's disease. And we can turn these machines on and off to stimulate the areas of the brain that are malfunctioning and to improve their function. And as I told you, we've done about 1,000 of these operations for Parkinson's disease, and where we try to stimulate a circuit that controls movement. And the question is, could we also put these electrodes in circuits that control your memory, that control your thoughts, your actions, your mood? And so this is really the principle of now using the same technology called deep brain stimulation to treat patients with dementia, to see if we can improve the dementia by stimulating the circuits that are malfunctioning in patients with dementia. So the main procedure we've done so far is Parkinson's is now approved. It's now also approved for tremor. It's now approved also for epilepsy. And now the discussion today is, could we use the same technique to treat patients with dementia, and not just any kind of dementia, but specifically a form of dementia called frontotemporal dementia. So this is the clinical trial that we have just launched. So as you know, dementia is a common problem, and half of you know or have a family member with someone with dementia, sometimes a grandparent or a parent. So it's quite a common problem affecting millions of Canadians. And what we are looking for specifically in this trial are patients who have not just any kind of dementia, but a specific kind of dementia called frontotemporal dementia. This is an area, this is a kind of dementia where there are parts of the brain seen here in pink that are malfunctioning. So these are the areas of the brain that are mostly affected in frontotemporal dementia: the temporal lobe involved in memory, the frontal lobe involved in language, involved in motivation. These are the areas of the brain that are damaged by the illness in frontotemporal dementia. And what we've discovered is that if you look at the activity of the brain in these areas in patients with frontotemporal dementia, seen here in the slide, you'll notice that the frontal lobes of the brain, which are seen here, are yellow and red. And this indicates that these areas of the brain are underperforming. They are underusing glucose. So glucose is the fuel that the brain uses to function. It burns glucose. And in patients with frontotemporal dementia, these areas of the brain are using less fuel. So it's as if they are able to work because they are not burning energy. So it's as if the lights are turned down or the lights are turned off in these areas of the brain. And what we would like to see is whether we can use electricity to turn on and increase the intensity of the activity in these lights, very much like turning a dimmer switch, where if the room is very dark, you turn the dimmer switch clockwise and it brightens up the room. Here, these areas of the brain are dark, they are dimmer than they should be, and we are trying to use electricity to see if we can turn them up, turn them back on, turn the lights back on, so that these areas of the brain are brighter and they're functioning at a higher, more normal level. So that is the idea behind this kind of surgery, is to stimulate the brain to see if we can reactivate these areas of the brain that are shut down or underperforming in patients with frontotemporal dementia. This is a disorder for which there are no effective treatments. The pills are not very effective for frontotemporal dementia, and this is really why we've been interested in looking at this alternative strategy, which has been so successful in treating Parkinson's disease, to see whether we could also use this same strategy in a different part of the brain, not in an area of the brain involving movement, but in the frontal and temporal lobes that involve memory, language, and motivation. So in order to think about this study and to enroll, we are looking for patients that are between 40 and 85 years of age. So this is the age group that we're looking for. We want them to have someone to help them as a potential substitute decision maker should they become too ill to make their own decisions, and do they have a caregiver. So these are the three main features that we're looking for. And if they do have this, and if they do have frontotemporal dementia, then they may be a candidate to enroll in this trial of deep brain stimulation for frontotemporal dementia at Toronto Western Hospital. So our trial involves inserting these electrodes in the brain and hooking them up to a battery, and then we will choose the amount of current required to see whether we can turn on the frontal and temporal lobes, and to see whether we can improve memory, cognitive function, and motivation in the patients who suffer with frontotemporal dementia. So really our goals are to establish that this is a safe procedure, that one can improve the function of the brain if we can restore glucose utilization in the brain in these areas that are shut down. And thirdly, can we improve function and quality of life in these patients? This is what we would like to accomplish with this study. So the first aim is to make sure that this is safe. We want to ensure that this is safe. We know that this is very safe in other illnesses like Parkinson's disease, but we want to make sure that it is safe also in patients with frontotemporal dementia. And as I mentioned, we want to make sure that we can turn on these areas of the brain that are shut down. And finally, we want to see whether this has an impact in the quality of life and in the function of these patients. We have patients from the Toronto region, but we're also able to support patients from other areas of Ontario, and we're able to help with reimbursement for some of the travel, up to $200 per visit, up to a maximum. And we're also able to sometimes put patients up in the hotel when they come from out of town for these studies, up to $2,500 per year. The principal investigators are myself. So I am a neurosurgeon, so I'm the one who does the operations with my team. And we also have Dr. Tartaglia, Dr. Carmela Tartaglia, and she is an expert in dementia. And so she's in charge of choosing the patients and also to measure the impact of the illness, of stimulating the brain on their function. So she's in charge of both selecting the patients, ensuring that they're doing well throughout the study, and also measuring the impact of the surgery and of the stimulation in these patients. So this study is done in the context of a research coordinator, and Taz Nuba-Hawk is on the line with us. So Taz is in charge of coordinating the patients and shepherding them through the process. And if any of you are interested in participating in this, then I would ask you to contact Taz at the email or the phone number listed here. And so in summary then, we are starting this trial in patients with frontotemporal dementia. We have permission to operate on 6 patients. We have not operated on anyone yet, so we are very excited to launch this trial, and we hope that if any of you know someone who has frontotemporal dementia, that they would be interested potentially in participating in this. And we would love to hear from you. And if everything works out well, then we would love to enroll you in the study to see whether deep brain stimulation could be helpful for patients with frontotemporal dementia. And with that, I will stop, and I will take any questions if there are any. So thank you very much.